Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing some maintenance and a few minor modifications on this here Predator 3500 watt generator. So stay tuned. So as far as maintenance goes, it's going to get an oil change, and I guess I don't know if it's a mod or mostly maintenance, but I'm going to change the spark plug in it also. These things come with kind of a no-name-ish spark plug, and I'm going to switch it to the NGK that they say makes these things run a lot better. The other modifications that I'm going to do is inside here there is a charcoal canister that makes this carb compliant and all that, but it creates its own set of issues. If you overfill the tank, then it dumps a whole bunch of fuel into the charcoal canister, then that gets sucked into the carburetor, and then the thing runs really rich, and then it plugs up the, there's like a spark arrestor filter on the exhaust, and it plugs that all up, and then it can't get exhaust out. So if you've got a generator that's surging, and it just keeps going and then sometimes it'll quit. A lot of times it's sucking raw fuel into the carburetor through the air filter, and it just chokes itself out. You flood everything out, and then it may not start for the rest of that night, and I ran into that issue myself. So I'm going to get rid of the carb compliant thing in there, and the air box really can only suck air through that charcoal canister, so I'm going to drill a couple extra holes so that the air filter can actually get air, and then I'm going to delete the spark arrestor thing on the end here. I'm not worried about spark. It just sits in the bed of my truck, and when we go camping it stays in the bed of the truck. It never comes out of the bed of the truck, so I'm not overly concerned about having the spark arrestor. It's not like it throws flames out the exhaust or anything like that. One other thing that happens with that charcoal canister is that if it's sitting still, it's fine. You have fuel in it and everything's okay. But in the bed of the truck going down the road, it gets jostled all over the place, and that fuel gets sloshed up into the hose and it gets sucked into the canister, and then it drains into your carburetor and screws stuff up. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that and bypass that system and show you how to do it. Let's get to the first thing, which is the oil change. Now the oil change is actually pretty simple. This little door right here, you unscrew this thing, and behind there is where you change the oil. There's a plug in there and there's a fill in there. That stuff is right behind this door. For ease of seeing the stuff, and besides I have to go in there anyway, I'm going to take this whole panel off, which is really easy. You loosen this screw, you loosen this screw, you lift up on this little rubber piece here, grab a hold of the front of this, and you just take this cover off. It just snaps on, and those screws don't fall out, so you don't have to worry about the screws going anywhere. Now inside here, you'll see this is your oil fill and your check. You unscrew that, it's a dipstick, and then right down here is your oil drain. It's a 10mm bolt, and you just unscrew that, and then the oil drains out and drains down into here. But before you do that, there's a couple of things that you have to do. There's a rubber plug down here in the bottom that you have to get from underneath the generator and pull that plug out. Now that rubber plug is right in this little square hole here. Now over time, mine has gotten ripped off, so I don't even worry about it anymore. I don't have to do anything when I'm changing the oil, but this is where the rubber plug would be. Now the next thing you want is an old cookie sheet. So sneak in the house, find your wife's cookie sheets, and snatch one. So that's what we have here. And you just slide this thing underneath there, and then when you drain it, it drains into that pan. It's only about 20 ounces, so it's not going to overflow this thing, and you'll be able to pull it out and drain it into a drain pan later. So now, pan under, take out that 10mm bolt, make sure the generator has been warmed up. so that the oil will flow out. There's your drain plug. And then take your dipstick tube out to allow it to drain a little faster. Now what I like to do when I am draining the oil out is I like to squirt a little bit of clean oil in there to help flush out stuff till I see it running clear. And since I'm impatient, I blow a little bit of air in there to help it move a little faster with my blowgun. Then put the plug back in, spray it down with some cleaner, and now you're ready to fill her back up. I use the end of a gear lube nozzle. Just screw it onto your oil jug, and then you can put it right in there and fill her up. Takes 20 ounces, but make sure you double check your oil level. One last cleanup, and the oil change is done. These don't have an oil filter on them, so you don't have to worry about that. Now I'm going to go after this charcoal canister. There are 2 hose clamps that you have to disconnect right here. So you pull the hose clamps back, pull those hoses off. Once you get the hose clamps off, then pull those hoses off, just like that. And then you're kind of done. This upper hose can be affixed up here to keep it out of the way. But I'm going to go ahead and take this thing out. And there you go. That's the charcoal canister. Now this hose with the braided shielding on it goes around to the front of the, let me scooch it down, goes around to the front of the air cleaner, and that hose can be completely removed. It's just held down by a little zip tie up at the top. So this remaining rubber hose was affixed down here, so it was about in that location. So it's got a hole right here that this thing snaps into. I'm going to drill a hole up here, and I'm going to relocate this thing so that it is breathing from up here. You still need a vent for your gas tank. Otherwise, I mean, you could plug this off, but then when you run it, you're going to have to open the cap, and I don't want to have to do that. So I'm just going to relocate it up here so that it has a vent. It'll be above the bottom of the tank or the overflow of the tank, and there won't be any fuel spillage coming out of that. There we go. Next thing I'm going to do is deal with this spark arrestor. You take this panel out, it's only 6 screws, and you pop those out. Now those screws are not captured. You can lose them, so watch it and keep a hold of them. And then you just take off these. And that's the inside screen. And then this is the outside thing. And they tend to get plugged up pretty good. This one's not horrible, but it's getting there. Then you just put your panel back on and you're done. Now the spark plug is like any other spark plug. You pull the cap, you have the spark plug underneath there. You get your spark plug socket and you jam it down in the hole, take the spark plug out. I'm not going to show you all the steps, it's just replacing a spark plug. I am going to tell you that you get yourself one of these NGKs, and it is a BPR6ES. See that there? That's the spark plug that you want to make these things run good. One thing that I want to mention is this hole was not big enough for me to get the socket down in. It was and it wasn't really round. It was like deformed and kind of oval shaped. So I had to go in there with a little die grinder and just kind of trim up the edges a little bit. That's why you see this plastic there, so that I could get the spark plug socket actually down into the stupid hole. After further examination, I disagree with what the interwebs say about this not being able to allow air to get into the carburetor. Some people say that this is the only place that it can suck air through, and that is just not true. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so this is the air filter, and the cover goes over it, and you can see right there, there are big vents that allow air to come into this air filter and then get up into here and do its thing. So it does have a way to get good air. So I'm not going to drill any holes. And there she is, purring like a kitten. So, I hope you learned something in this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And as always, have safe travels, and I hope to see you on the road.